It's an urban style, but it has a chicness to it.
What about these rumors that you guys have been around?
You can tell, right?
What? You read the gossip magazines and everybody is dating everyone, everybody hates everyone, everybody's like had tons of plastic surgery and we're actually men and trannies. I mean, it's just like, you don't listen to the rumors.
The real life is so much better and so much more exciting, I think, for us. You don't want to hear that we all get along and that we all
Hey besties, woo! My goodness, we need to talk because Blake Lively has filed her responses to the motion for the judgments on the pleadings and the motion for the summary judgment, her oppositions. Now, at first glance, when I was reading through these, the summary judgment is so redacted, it is so hard to even know what she's arguing, what she's talking about, and what's happening. Like, pages of it, pages. I felt like 60% of it was redacted because so much was missing. I don't know what all her arguments are. And then with the motion for the judgment on the pleadings, Lively spent a lot of time just trying to tell the court that they shouldn't even consider anything in here because they should just go to the summary judgment and review the summary judgment with the evidence. She spent a lot of time telling the court, like, you just need to conform to the summary judgment. Why? I believe there's a lot of defects in her second amended complaint that were highlighted by Wayfair that if the court were to take as these pleadings are defective, he doesn't have to review all of the evidence. And so if he only looks at the pleadings and then doesn't look at the evidence, all he has to do is say, is this pled properly? Does California law apply? Is FEHA extraterritorial? Can it be applied to what happens on the set in New Jersey or in the home of Blake Lively? And Blake Lively spent a bunch of time on her judgment on the pleadings trying to create a nexus between stuff that happened in the pre-production before filming started as the basis for why California law should apply to what happened on the set. So decisions about HR, conversations that were had about how the production was going to be set up, issues with and decisions related to casting, production, and the HR system that they were going to use, conversations with Alex Sachs, just things that I think were pretty weak to claim a nexus between the California law should apply. So really what she wants is the judge to say that the actor's loan out agreement is enforceable and that California law, the choice of law, must apply. And I don't know that that's a really strong argument, so we'll have to wait and see. But with both of these, what I noticed was that she really was trying to flip the narrative. So there was a lot in here that I felt like was trying to reframe some of what Wayfair's side has put out. And really what she was doing was trying to create disputes of material fact. So she was bringing up situations related to facts that Wayfair brought up, and she brought an opposing fact that she's trying to tell the court, these are why it needs to go to trial, because our facts are not the same. Our experiences are not the same. Their version is not the same as my version, and a jury needs to decide this. Okay. And so her point of view is grossly different than Baldoni. But one thing I did notice was that, and I don't think is common, is that she brought up stuff about other women and issues of a hostile environment on the set for other people who never filed lawsuits against Baldoni, who never filed HR complaints against Baldoni, who literally aren't litigants in this case, and there's no legal dispute between them. And she's using references and examples from these other women to try to piece together a dialogue or a narrative to the judge that, like, I was targeted because I was a woman and these other women were too. And so it was gender specific, trying to get around that gender specific issue, but also trying to paint this as not just her that's causing the problem, but it was a pervasive issue for all these other women. And I don't think it's going to be persuasive to a judge because a lot of what she brought up in relation to like Jenny Slate, Isabella Ferreira, which we can't see, and Alex Sachs and Christy Hall, which a lot of it we can't see because it's completely redacted, ultimately is irrelevant to her claims because it has nothing to do with her. But what she's trying to do is tell the court that Justin says that he was alienated because I told people to alienate him. But no, everyone hated him because everyone hated Justin. And it had nothing to do with me. Something that I did notice, though, that I really want to point out and I think is important, and I think is at the heart of this, is this idea that Wayfair wasn't experienced enough to make this film. This belief that they didn't have the experience, the expertise at all. They had no business making this movie because they hadn't made many productive productions to this point. They had made films, they had made documentaries, they had put together and produced films, but they are not, you know, a huge production company that has made dozens and dozens of films, right? They are a relatively new production company. Green is how Alex Sachs described them, but that doesn't change the fact that they owned the material. And it seems that a lot of the people around them felt that they were green. But I think Blake, having worked with directors like Oliver Stone, Woody Allen, Ben Affleck, those are three problematic people, I'll just say that. Paul Feig, she has an expectation that she's always going to work with the top of the line directors. But she got a new director directing his second or third film, and she wanted the court to know. And this is literally how she frames this to the court. Baldoni sought to monetize his feminist brand through Wayfair, which he co-founded and co-chairs with billionaire Sarowitz, who is a Wayfair financier and one of Baldoni's close friends. Shortly after its launch, it acquired the film rights to Colleen Hoover's novel, It Ends With Us, the theme of which was female empowerment, including breaking the cycle of domestic violence. Hoover was reluctant to option the film to a man, but agreed to sell the rights to Wayfair because she believed Baldoni. And I'm assuming they're going to say she believed Baldoni's like feminist vision. Hoover explicitly requested that a woman direct the film. Okay, so she sold the rights to her film. She didn't sell the rights to having a say in who could direct and who didn't direct. She sold the rights to her film. So a lot of that is she's trying to create a disputed fact. But then she says, although Baldoni had directed only 2 small films, Wayfair decided that he would direct, executive produce, and be the film's lead actor. He was always going to be the director. When he bought the movie, he was always going to be the director. That was always the goal. And it's his IP. He can do whatever he wants. Wayfair appointed Heath, with even less experience, as a lead producer and as president of It Ends With Us. The wholly owned entity that produced the film and with Wayfair employed all cast and crew. Heath oversaw Sachs, an experienced independent producer. Sony agreed to distribute and co-finance the film with Giannotti as its liaison, but Wayfair could oversee and control all aspects of production. She's trying to establish that Wayfair had full control, but also saying that they didn't have any experience. And something that I noted in looking and reading through Alex Sachs' deposition transcripts were her also belief that they lacked experience. Now, as I'm looking through the deposition of Alex Sachs, and she's talking about why some of the women on the set had issues with Justin Baldoni, a lot of it comes down to control. Women who wanted more control, more say. They didn't just want to be an employee. They wanted to be either director, lead producer, have the voice. And Justin, as the director, is the one that's supposed to manage. Jamie's also a PGA here, and so he's producing. Alex Sachs is producing as well. But in films, there's often multiple producers, each one playing a vital role, okay? But there was a lot of conflict happening with egos about who was going to control what. And I think some people feeling entitled to getting more control. Like, for instance, Christy Hall apparently wanted to be a director. She's the screenwriter. And because she was working on another film and another screenplay at the time, Justin and Jamie apparently just said no. And Christy didn't like that. She felt like dismissed. In fact, she said Alex sent a text to Giannotti about the premiere and doing promotions about why Christy Hall didn't want to appear. And it says, Justin was very dismissive of her when she wanted to direct and then used Jamie to try to manipulate her when she realized she could co-direct it after she got Daddy-O going. Co-directing isn't normal, by the way. And if a film already has a director assigned, nobody else has to be a director. So just wanting to direct or be a co-director isn't enough to simply become the director. And being told no is being framed as dismissive. It would be like walking into a job and being like, I want to be the boss now. And then when the boss says no, you're like, well, they were dismissive and they said I couldn't be the boss. Alex Sachs wanted to be the head producer, and she didn't like that Justin brought Jamie on because she felt she had more experience than him. She believed she was capable enough to do this without Jamie. And she became an intermediary between all of these other people with egos, because this is Hollywood, and all of these other people realizing we can get a different director. We can. There was a clause in his contract, that if they needed to have someone else direct, they could. They all agreed that Justin would be the director when they signed their contracts. But if experiences and hostility happened on the set, they could push him out. And I'm not going to say that Justin's not without flaw, because it sounds like there were disagreements. He raised his voice at Alex. There's a dispute with him and Alex on the set where she says that he slams a table during a scene right after he had filmed a very aggressive scene where he was in a fight with Atlas, likely having adrenaline from coming off the set, which isn't an excuse. But a lot of the issues here were people came in and wanted control that they weren't really entitled to have, and then are making Justin the issue because he wouldn't give up control that he had rightfully. Just want to marinate that. But what a lot of her summary judgment is about is her trying to defend the fact that she didn't turn the cast against Justin. It was Justin's fault, and that Christy Hall didn't like him because she didn't get to be a co-director. And Alex Sachs had issues with him because they had verbal disagreements, and she had to field issues between the female cast and Justin. I think there was maybe a sense when some of these women signed on that they thought that because this was a green film and that because Justin and Jamie had presented themselves as like understanding and compassionate of women, that maybe they felt like they would be more empowered to be in control. But I also don't want to underestimate the fact that Blake Lively herself creates a lot of chaos on sets. She frequently has admitted that she only wants to work with the best people. She has a view of herself where she really does view herself as the most experienced, the one with the biggest vision. And regardless of what was happening with these other people, even though small disagreements happened while filming, there were very few cast members that wanted nothing to do with him until Blake got in their ear, right? Like Jenny Slate didn't like him or Jamie. Blake didn't like him or Jamie. But there's nothing in here where it's like, this actress didn't like him or this person had an issue with him, because until Blake got involved with Isabella, there weren't complaints. And one of the statements that Alex Sachs made in her deposition was that some of the cast didn't want to work with him based upon what they had heard happened, what they had heard, not what they experienced, what they had heard. Around the time of Bookmanza, did you come to understand that certain cast and crew did not want to appear in press and promotion with Mr. Baldoni? And Alex said yes. And she questioned, who? I don't remember exactly, but I want to say everyone except Hassan. Would that have been Miss Lively, Miss Slate, Miss Ferrer, Mr. Sklenar, and Miss Hoover, who did not, and Miss Hall, who did not want to appear in press or promotion with Mr. Baldoni? Correct. So that also would exclude the actor Alex, who played the young Atlas. Did you have an understanding as to why those individuals did not want to appear in press or promotion with Mr. Baldoni? I believe because of everything that had transpired, or what they had transpired. What they had heard. Miss Ferrer and Mr. Sklenar didn't have complaints until they heard what had transpired. So if you're trying to get people on your side, the best thing to do is, poison them against someone else, create conflicts that didn't exist, make them think that things happened that didn't happen. This is a large production, very high stress. And even at points in time during the deposition, Alex made clear that it was very overwhelming for her, for Justin, and that when she did have disagreements with him, she felt like they would get resolved and he would apologize. But she also called Justin a narcissist. So it is Hollywood. There are a lot of egos involved here. I don't know that he qualifies as a narcissist. Either way, she said he was, but she said she wasn't a doctor. What is clear with the motion for the summary judgment is that while she's going through all of her statements of facts, she spends all of this time saying, Justin did this, Justin did that. Everyone hates Justin. Justin, Justin, Justin. All of it's like blacked out, right? It mostly is redacted. Most of the issues in the beginning of the set related to two people, Blake and Jenny, with their complaints. And it was Blake and Jenny that wanted a different director. And it was Jenny that demanded that Jamie Heath not be on the set. She never wanted to see him again. Two people. But even after all of what she goes through to try to justify everything that happens and explain that she didn't take over the film, she didn't steal anything, that Sony gave her permission, when we finally get to the legal arguments, everything about Justin Baldoni is literally ignored. Everything. All the comments about sexy, ignored. The dancing, ignored. The talking about his genitals, which, by the way, you guys, was that he said he was circumcised. Without context, I have no idea what they were talking about. So I'm just going to say she had just had a baby boy. Maybe that's why they were talking about it. Either way, all these claims about how Justin was rude to Alex and he yelled at Alex and made her feel uncomfortable, and Alex didn't want to work there, and Jenny didn't like him, and Jenny didn't like Jamie, and I had all these issues, and they called us sexy, and he had lingering kisses and improvised kisses. And after all of that, where she spends literally 35 pages, she spends 4 pages total on the sexual harassment. 4. And she clearly points out, and I think she understands, that the claims against Baldoni are flimsy because she didn't even argue that they should be brought to trial. In fact, it's Jamie Heath that they say it warrants. Jamie's behavior alone warrants denying the motion for summary judgment. Nothing about Justin's behavior. So 35 pages of just calling him a sexual predator. And then it's not even Justin's behavior that warrants a trial. She brought up all those issues with all of those other women who, by the way, absolutely none of them have accused Justin of sexual harassment. Not one. She's using those women's experiences to claim that it was all gender specific, that all the hostility he was having with on the set were with women and only women. And that is how she's trying to explain that what she experienced was gender specific, which isn't going to work. And what the other women experienced isn't relevant because they're not a part of the case. And then she's also listing all of these things to claim it was pervasive. But she says this about Heath. Heath's intrusion into her hair and makeup trailer and choice to show her a nude video at work after filming of the birth scene already had concluded, each alone give rise to a trialable issue on harassment that precludes summary judgment. Any reasonable woman in Lively's position would be offended by having a supervisor look at her exposed breasts or play a video of his admittedly naked wife in the workplace. These experiences are degrading and humiliating in the extreme, and ignores that Heath was Lively's boss. She then just basically says that the set was so hostile and so terrible for literally everyone, and that Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath acted with such impunity and they covered up their misdeeds that everything was so bad and they had so much control over her that she wasn't able to have good chemistry with her co-star, forcing her to spend significant time reporting and attempting to remedy their behaviors. Who's her co-star? You mean Baldoni? I'm confused. And she wants to now walk back from her own complaint that after filming resumed, no other problems happened. Her complaint states nothing bad happened after January 4th. They go back to filming. Everything's great. No other incidents occur. And now she says, well, maybe there were. And then to try to get around the supervisory, she says, they were my supervisors. I was their employee and I had to abide by their policy. And I just keep thinking, like, 4 pages. That's it. 4 pages. The conduct that she says must go to trial and that she claims is so severe and pervasive is a video that's mischaracterized as being shown after the filming had been done, which wasn't true. They have the timeline and it says when the video was shown. The filming of the scene hadn't started yet. Doesn't make, and then having her exposed breasts as though he's staring at them now. That story has changed too. He denies staring at anyone. He denies barging. He knocked on the door. And there was testimony from Alex Sachs that she let him come in. And Alex Sachs' testimony about what happened with the trailer doesn't appear to show that Jamie barged in. In fact, when she relayed what Blake had told her to Angie Giannetti from Sony, she said this in a message. And then she also mentioned that, I guess, on day 2, Jamie went into Blake's trailer and she was like, oh, actually, I'm getting body makeup done. Well, when you can come in if you don't look. And apparently he was looking in her direction the entire conversation when she turned around. Do you see that? Yes. What do you recall Miss Lively sharing with regard to that incident? Nothing more than what you just read. So did Miss Lively, do you recall Miss Lively sharing with you that Mr. Heath had barged into her trailer while she was undressed? I don't recall. Do you recall whether Miss Lively sharing whether she had clothes on at the time? I don't recall. But if I'm saying she was getting body makeup done, then she didn't have clothes on. And to your understanding, when Miss Lively was getting body makeup done or removed, was she generally topless? I don't actually know. Do you believe she might have been? Correct. Believe. But she doesn't know. She can't answer a question that she doesn't know. It sounds to me like at the time that this happened with the trailer incident, it wasn't that big of a deal. He didn't barge in. He knocked on the door. She invited him in and said that he could come in as long as she didn't look. And then she wasn't even facing him, wasn't even looking at him, and she turned around and noticed he was looking at her. So how would she then know that he was looking at her the entire time? It sounds to me like this is an instance that's being overinflated, because if she really didn't want him to come in, she could have said no. He wouldn't have gone in. She said, you can come in. Is that sexual harassment? I don't even really want to go into the rest of the summary judgment at this point, because truthfully, if you're only going to spend four paragraphs, 4 pages on sexual harassment, citing very little law about why these must go to trial, your case is pretty weak. The entire basis of her case rests on the fact that she was sexually harassed. If she wasn't sexually harassed, there's no retaliation. Nothing. If you're going to worry about sexual harassment, you should be focusing your case on the sexual harassment. But instead, they spend from page 41 to 51 on retaliation. 10 pages are on retaliation. 4 on sexual harassment. And I've listened to some of the attorneys that have been covering this, and most of them don't agree that what she says is severe or pervasive. It warrants a trial. So there's a lot more we need to get through today. But this was my first swipe at the motion for summary judgment. And what I see is that Blake's attempt to rewrite the story certainly shows a different side of Baldoni, but none of that at all comes close to sexual harassment. So tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.